The alien princess's child knocked on the wrong door. A human answered it. Eli was used to quiet nights. The colony on the edge of known space rarely saw visitors, and the hum of machines in his small home was the only sound that kept him company. He worked late, repairing the atmospheric stabilizer that kept the temperature just right in his home, his hands steady and practiced from years of tinkering. He liked the predictability, the calm, the way he could understand every wire and every circuit. Outside, the colony's streets were empty, bathed in the soft glow of distant stars, but Eli didn't mind. He was content. The knock came suddenly, shattering the quiet. It was soft but deliberate, a single tap that made him pause. Eli frowned, wiping his hands on his worn overalls. Visitors at this hour were rare, and he was sure he would recognize anyone who might come by. But there was no one he knew in sight. He opened the door cautiously and froze. Standing there was a small figure, no taller than a child, with smooth, luminescent skin that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Its eyes were large and curious, reflecting the stars above, and its body radiated a quiet warmth. It wore a suit that looked alien, with strange patterns that seemed to shift like liquid when he stared at them. The child made a soft, musical sound that Eli did not understand, tilting its head as if studying him. Eli took a step back, instinctively protective, but something about the child's demeanor stopped him from retreating further. There was no fear in its eyes, no threat. It reached out a tiny hand, holding a small device that flickered with glowing symbols. Eli bent down to get a closer look. The device projected a holographic star map into the air, showing a world he did not recognize, far beyond the maps he had studied for years. The lines connected to a central point, and he realized slowly that this was not just a child who had wandered off. It was someone important. The child's gestures were careful, deliberate, and Eli could feel a kind of intelligence beyond what he had ever encountered. It tapped a point on the star map, then pointed at him. Its tone was soft, almost musical, but there was a sense of urgency. Eli frowned, unsure what it wanted, but he could sense it was asking for help. He stepped aside, allowing the child into his home. Once inside, the child looked around with wide eyes, touching the walls and machinery with delicate fingers. It was fascinated by the lights and the hum of his equipment. Eli offered a seat, though he doubted it would understand him. "You're lost," he said cautiously. The child tilted its head, and a soft glow ran across its skin, almost like a nod. Eli's heart softened. Somehow this small, strange creature had already earned his trust. Eli set the device on the table and studied it. The holographic star map hovered above it, showing a complex system of lines and points. He traced one of the paths with his finger. "This is your home?" he asked. The child's glow brightened, and it reached out to touch the map again. Eli understood then that it was showing him the way back, but something had gone wrong. The path led through parts of space that were dangerous and heavily patrolled by alien forces. The child's arrival at his door had not been an accident. He realized the child had knocked on the wrong door. Somehow, in a galaxy so vast, it had ended up at a human home on a quiet colony. He could feel the weight of that thought pressing down. If the wrong people found the child, there could be trouble, but Eli wasn't the kind to shy away from a challenge. He was curious, and he was capable. Most importantly, he had a strong sense of right and wrong. He could not leave the child alone in the cold darkness outside. Eli pulled a chair closer and gestured for the child to sit. It moved slowly, carefully, as if trying to understand his intentions. The soft hum of the stabilizer filled the room, mingling with the faint glow of the star map. Eli offered it a glass of water, though he was unsure if it could drink anything humans consumed. The child touched the glass, felt the liquid, then nodded slightly. Eli smiled at the gesture. Communication was difficult, but it was not impossible. Hours passed as he tried to understand the child. He tapped his console, showing images of planets, stars, and ships. The child responded, tapping and pointing at certain images. It was learning quickly, and Eli realized that this was no ordinary visitor. This small being was clever, fast learning, and above all, aware. He marveled at its intelligence, wondering what kind of world it had come from. The patterns on its suit shifted again, responding to his movements. It was almost as if the suit itself was alive, or at least deeply connected to the child. A soft knock at the window startled him. He turned sharply, expecting trouble, but it was only the reflection of the child's glow on the glass. He chuckled nervously, realizing how tense he had become. The stars outside twinkled quietly, indifferent to the sudden intrusion into his peaceful life. Yet for Eli, nothing would ever feel the same. The child's presence had introduced a mystery, a challenge, and perhaps an opportunity he had never imagined. As he prepared a simple meal, he watched the child imitate his movements, picking up utensils, examining the food with fascination. Its mimicry was perfect down to the smallest detail, and Eli felt a strange sense of pride. He was teaching it, guiding it, and in return it was teaching him about patience, observation, and empathy. The child was a puzzle, a riddle, and a companion all at once. Night deepened, and Eli finally leaned back in his chair, exhausted but alert. He realized he would have to decide soon what to do next. He could not let the child remain hidden forever, but he also could not risk it being discovered by the wrong people. He studied the star map again, tracing the lines with his finger. Somewhere out there, a mother waited, a kingdom waited, and perhaps the fate of more than one world rested on the choices he made tonight. The child stood slowly and walked to the device, pressing a small panel that caused the holographic map to shift. It pointed again at a single point, bright and pulsing. Eli felt the weight of the gesture. The child wanted him to act, to understand, and to make a choice. He nodded slowly, as if acknowledging a silent promise. He would help. He would figure this out. The room was quiet again, but now it was filled with anticipation. Outside, the colony slept, unaware of the small alien visitor hiding in Eli's home. Inside, a human and a being from another world shared a moment of understanding that transcended language, culture, and species. For the first time in his life, Eli felt that the universe was larger, stranger, and more full of possibility than he had ever imagined. And then the child looked at him directly, its large eyes reflecting his own, and Eli understood. This was only the beginning. The galaxy had knocked on his door, and somehow he was ready to answer. Eli woke the next morning to the soft hum of his stabilizer and the quiet glow of the alien child sitting at the table. It had spent the night examining his home, touching the walls, the devices, and even the small personal items he kept neatly on shelves. It was learning, observing, and understanding, and Eli could see the way its luminous skin shifted as it processed everything. He poured some water into a cup and set it gently in front of the child. It touched the cup lightly, careful not to spill a drop, and nodded. Eli knew he had to act carefully. The child was important, and the device it carried could reveal secrets of faraway worlds if it fell into the wrong hands. Yet he also knew that the child was not dangerous. It was innocent, curious, and extraordinarily intelligent. He thought of the star map from the previous night and the bright point that pulsed constantly, signaling the child's home. Somewhere, a kingdom awaited its return, and the child had come to him by accident. He began experimenting with ways to communicate more clearly. He drew simple shapes on a pad and showed them to the child. When he drew a triangle, the child's glow brightened in recognition. When he drew a circle, it responded in a different shade. Slowly, a language began to form, a language of light, shapes, and careful gestures. Eli smiled. He had always enjoyed puzzles, and this was a puzzle unlike any he had ever encountered. The child's gestures became more deliberate. It tapped on the device, and new holographic images appeared, structures, people, and symbols that Eli had never seen before. He traced the images with his fingers, trying to understand. He realized that the child was showing him its home planet and the kingdom it belonged to. The buildings were tall, elegant, and shimmering, unlike anything humans had built. The streets were lined with light and color, and the sky was streaked with floating shapes that might have been ships. The child's glowing eyes followed his every move, as if waiting for approval or understanding. As the morning passed, Eli began to feel a bond forming. He talked softly, even though the child could not understand words fully. He explained the machines in his home, the systems that controlled air and water, and the simple pleasures he enjoyed, like a warm meal or the quiet of night. The child listened, moving its hands slowly, mimicking some of his motions. Eli realized that this mimicry was a sign of trust and learning. Then a sudden thought struck him. If he could understand the child's device, perhaps he could help it communicate directly with its home. He tapped into the device carefully, avoiding the parts he did not recognize. The device responded instantly, its light shifting in complex patterns. Eli studied it, tracing lines and symbols, and discovered that it was a communication tool. With the right input, he could send a message across space. The possibility was thrilling but also frightening. If he sent the wrong signal, it could alert others to the child's location. Hours passed as he experimented. The child watched silently, glowing softly, waiting, patient in a way that only beings who had lived far longer than humans could be. Eli realized that the child had the patience of a scholar, the intelligence of a strategist, and the innocence of a child all at once. He marveled at how something so small could hold so much within it. Finally, Eli managed to create a simple message, a visual sequence using the child's own symbols. When he activated it, the device projected a light across the room, then faded. The child's glow brightened and it reached out, tapping the device repeatedly. Eli understood. The child had received the message. He smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and relief. Communication was possible. But as he prepared a simple meal, he noticed something troubling. A faint signal pulsed from the device, something Eli had not activated. It was faint, almost hidden, but it was there. The child did not seem aware of it, yet Eli's mind raced. He realized that this could be a tracking signal from the child's home. Someone or something was trying to locate it. He felt a surge of responsibility. He could not let the child be found too soon, not before he understood the situation fully. Eli decided to act carefully. He began to cover the device with materials that could mask its signal, using metal scraps and reflective surfaces from his workshop. The child watched him work, moving its hands as if curious about what he was doing. Eli explained softly, using gestures and simple images on his pad. The child's glow shifted, understanding that Eli was trying to protect it. A bond of trust deepened between them. Time passed quickly in this quiet, shared work. Eli found himself thinking not just about safety, but about the child's life, its home, and its kingdom. He imagined what it must have been like to grow up in a world so different, to be responsible for something as important as the child seemed to be. Yet, despite the differences, he felt a deep connection. The child's curiosity mirrored his own, its intelligence sparked his admiration, and its innocence awakened a protective instinct he had never known. By late afternoon, Eli had managed to stabilize the device and mask its signal. He stepped back and observed the child. It seemed satisfied, its glow soft and steady. Eli realized that this small being had changed his life in ways he could not yet measure. He had entered his home by accident, yet its presence had made him think, feel, and act in ways he had never expected. Then, without warning, the device flickered again, projecting a new set of images. Eli leaned closer. The holograms showed figures moving through corridors, cloaked and careful. They were not threatening, but their purpose was clear. The child's parents, or perhaps their agents, were searching for it. Eli felt a surge of urgency. He had to make a decision. He could not allow the child to be found without preparation, but he also could not keep it hidden indefinitely. The child reached out to him, placing a small, glowing hand on his arm. Eli felt a warmth and an unspoken plea. It was asking him for help, asking him to understand, and asking him to act. He nodded slowly, as if acknowledging a silent promise. He would protect it, he would guide it, and he would find a way to return it safely to its home. Eli spent the evening preparing a temporary hiding place within his home. He rearranged furniture, created small reflective barriers, and used his knowledge of the stabilizer to mask heat and energy signatures. The child watched, moving slowly and occasionally touching the devices with fascination. Eli realized that it was learning from him, observing his methods, and perhaps even understanding his thought process. As night fell, Eli felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear. He had become responsible for a being from another world, one whose safety and future depended on his actions. Yet, he did not feel overwhelmed. He felt capable, ready to act, and determined to do what was right. The child's presence had awakened something in him, a sense of purpose that extended beyond himself, beyond his home, beyond his quiet life on the edge of the galaxy. Finally, he sat down across from the child. They did not speak the same language, but words were not necessary. The soft glow of its skin, the steady hum of the machines, and the quiet of the colony outside created a moment of understanding. Eli reached out, placing a hand near the child's, and the child mirrored him, its glow pulsing softly. They were allies now, partners in a challenge that neither fully understood, yet both were ready to face. Before sleep claimed him, Eli studied the star map one last time. The bright point representing the child's home pulsed steadily, a reminder of the journey ahead. He knew that tomorrow would bring more challenges, more questions, and more discoveries. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of calm, a moment of hope, and a moment of connection. The child had come to his door by accident, but its arrival had changed everything. And in that quiet room, lit by the soft glow of alien light and human ingenuity, Eli understood something profound. Sometimes the universe brought the most extraordinary experiences to the most ordinary lives. He had answered a knock on his door, and in doing so, he had opened himself to a universe of possibility, friendship, and discovery that he had never imagined. Tomorrow, he would take the next step. But tonight, he simply watched the child, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of adventure intertwined. Somewhere far away, the child's family searched, and somewhere a kingdom waited. Eli knew that the choices he made, the trust he earned, and the care he showed would shape not just the child's journey, but perhaps the fate of worlds he could not yet see. And as he finally drifted into sleep, the soft pulse of the alien light beside him seemed to echo the rhythm of possibility, hope, and a promise that the galaxy had only just begun to reveal its secrets. The next morning, Eli awoke to a quiet house, the soft hum of the stabilizer and the faint glow of the child's skin filling the room. Overnight, he had thought about everything that might happen if the child were discovered by others. He knew the galaxy was not always kind, and even well-intentioned visitors could sometimes bring danger without meaning to. Yet, as he watched the small being sitting on the floor, tracing shapes in the air with its glowing fingers, he felt a growing determination. He would protect it no matter what. He began preparing for the day with care. He arranged his tools neatly, keeping a set close by that he might need. The child watched quietly, tilting its head whenever he picked up a wrench or examined a panel. It mimicked some of his motions, though clumsily at first. Eli chuckled softly, realizing that while the child was incredibly intelligent, it was still learning. Its mind was a puzzle, full of patterns and logic he could not fully understand, yet he could see glimpses of brilliance in the way it observed and processed everything. By mid-morning, Eli decided to test the child's device more thoroughly. He had spent hours yesterday learning its functions, but there was still much he did not understand. The device projected holographic maps, symbols, and images, each one flickering in response to the child's gestures. Eli tapped carefully on the surface, and the child responded, its glow pulsing brightly as if encouraging him. He realized that this interaction was more than just communication. It was a form of learning, a way to understand each other without words. Suddenly, the device emitted a sharp pulse of light, and Eli felt a small shock run through his fingers. The child's glow flickered, then steadied. Eli frowned, examining the device. Something had changed. He traced the holographic lines, noticing a new pattern forming in the star map. A series of small points moved along the pathways, converging on a central location. He understood immediately. Someone was coming. Someone was searching for the child. Panic did not strike Eli, but a surge of urgency did. He glanced at the child, whose large eyes reflected the same pattern of points on the map. It made a soft sound, melodic and anxious, reaching out to touch the hologram as if asking for guidance. Eli nodded, trying to convey calm without frightening it. He realized that the child trusted him, and that trust was something precious. If he acted carefully, he could help it, but if he hesitated, the wrong beings could find them both. He decided to move the child to a hidden part of the house. Eli had always been meticulous about his workshop, and he knew a small maintenance corridor that ran beneath the house, usually used for venting excess energy from the stabilizer. It was narrow, cluttered with wires and panels, but it would provide a temporary hiding place. He guided the child gently, showing it how to move slowly and quietly, pointing with gestures and simple symbols. The child followed without hesitation, its trust in him evident. Once they were safely hidden, Eli examined the star map again. The points converging on the child's location had grown brighter, closer. He realized that these were agents from the child's home kingdom, likely tasked with recovering it. Yet they were not aggressive or threatening in appearance, only careful, methodical, and determined. Eli understood then that the child's arrival at his door had caused confusion back home, but it had not caused panic. The kingdom sought it, but with precision, not violence. Eli thought quickly. If the agents arrived while the child was still in the open, they might assume hostility or danger and take extreme action. He needed a distraction, a way to make it appear as if the child had never been there. He scanned his surroundings, his mind racing. The stabilizer could be adjusted slightly to create a small energy interference, enough to mask the child's presence temporarily. He began working, adjusting panels and carefully routing power. The child watched with fascination, its glow pulsing with interest. Eli explained softly, using gestures and symbols on a pad. The child seemed to understand, nodding slightly. Hours passed in this quiet preparation. Eli worked with precision, guided by experience, and the child observed, learning. He felt a sense of pride and wonder. Here was a being from a distant world, small and vulnerable, yet capable of understanding and learning in ways humans could scarcely imagine. Its presence reminded him of the value of patience, observation, and intelligence. He realized that the galaxy was full of mysteries, and that sometimes the smallest beings could hold the greatest secrets. By late afternoon, Eli had completed the adjustments. The energy signatures in the house now masked the child's presence, hiding it from detection. He tested the device again, sending a small pulse to see if it would reveal them. The holographic map responded, but the points searching for the child seemed confused, their paths faltering slightly. Eli smiled quietly, realizing that he had succeeded. The child's safety, at least for now, was secure. The child reached out, touching the device and then Eli's hand. Its glow pulsed warmly, a silent gesture of thanks and trust. Eli felt a profound connection in that moment, a sense of shared purpose that transcended language, species, and distance. He realized that this bond was more than protection, it was understanding. They were allies now, connected by trust, intelligence, and the shared challenge of navigating a galaxy that neither fully controlled. Evening fell, and the colony outside remained quiet. Eli prepared a simple meal, though he ate little, his mind occupied with thoughts of what might come next. He considered the child's home, the kingdom waiting for its return, and the agents moving through space in search of it. He knew that the next steps would require careful planning, clever thinking, and perhaps courage he had not yet tested. Yet he did not feel fear. He felt readiness. He understood that humans had a unique strength, the ability to solve problems creatively, to act with empathy, and to adapt to situations beyond their understanding. As night deepened, Eli sat with the child beside him. They shared a quiet moment, watching the soft pulses of light from the device and the gentle glow of the child's skin. Eli wondered what kind of life the child had led before arriving at his door. He imagined a world of beauty, intelligence, and culture, a kingdom vast and shining. He thought of the child's parents, perhaps worried, perhaps frustrated, and yet guided by a sense of duty rather than aggression. The child's presence reminded him of the vastness of the universe and the ways in which lives could intersect unexpectedly. Suddenly, the device projected a new pattern. This one was different, more intricate, more deliberate. Eli leaned closer, examining it carefully. The holographic points moved in a coordinated manner, suggesting a plan or path that someone was tracing. He realized that these were not agents searching blindly. They were calculating, strategizing, and moving with purpose. The child watched him, its glow flickering with curiosity and concern. Eli knew he had to understand this pattern before acting. Hours passed as he studied the projection. Slowly, a picture began to form. The agents were attempting to locate the child using signals that the device itself emitted. Eli's adjustments had delayed them, but the next step would require cleverness and intuition. He began planning, thinking several steps ahead, using his knowledge of engineering, observation, and logic. The child sat beside him, occasionally touching the map and moving points in subtle ways, as if offering suggestions. Eli marveled at the partnership forming between them, a human mind and an alien mind working together in silent harmony. As dawn approached, Eli felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. The immediate danger had passed, and the child's location remained hidden for now. Yet he knew that this was only the beginning. He could not remain in hiding indefinitely. Eventually, the kingdom would reach the colony, and he would have to navigate diplomacy, trust, and clever thinking to ensure the child's safe return. The responsibility was immense, but he felt ready. He understood that humans had a special place in the galaxy, not through force or power, but through intelligence, empathy, and ingenuity. The child looked up at him, its glow soft and steady. Eli reached out, placing a hand near its tiny one. The gesture was simple, yet it carried meaning beyond words: trust, care, partnership, understanding. In that moment, he realized that their bond was unbreakable, forged in the quiet moments of observation, problem-solving, and mutual respect. Finally, Eli allowed himself to rest, leaning back in his chair as the child curled near the device, watching the patterns of light flicker and dance. He knew that challenges lay ahead, that the kingdom's agents would not wait forever, and that the choices he made next would shape not only the child's future, but perhaps the relations between worlds he could scarcely imagine. Yet, for the first time, he felt a sense of calm. He had acted wisely, protected the innocent, and demonstrated the power of human thought, care, and adaptability. And as he closed his eyes, he thought of the words he could not speak, but understood deeply. The universe had chosen him to answer a knock on his door, and in doing so, he had begun a journey that would test not his strength, but his mind, his empathy, and his courage. The adventure was only beginning, and he was ready to face it alongside the small being that had appeared so unexpectedly in his life. The morning sunlight streamed through the small windows of Eli's home, casting a warm glow across the room. Eli had spent the night thinking carefully about what lay ahead. The points on the child's device, representing the agents searching for it, were still active in his mind. They were patient, precise, and intelligent. They were not soldiers seeking a fight. They were guardians, methodical and persistent. Eli understood that a single mistake could put the child at risk, yet he felt calm. He had time, tools, and ingenuity, and most importantly, he had the trust of the child. The child sat quietly by the device, its glow soft and steady, as if aware of Eli's thoughts. Its presence was comforting, almost like a silent reassurance that they were in this together. Eli looked at it and realized something profound. This being, though from another world, was teaching him as much as he was teaching it. Patience, observation, and empathy were not just qualities. It was the way the universe communicated with those who cared to listen. Eli rose and moved toward his workshop corner. He needed to prepare for the possibility that the agents would arrive soon. The previous night's masking had delayed detection, but it could only hold for so long. He began adjusting devices, creating subtle energy reflections, and designing a small system to redirect the signals from the child's device. As he worked, the child watched attentively, occasionally reaching out to mimic his movements. Eli smiled. Its curiosity was endless, and its intelligence was extraordinary. Hours passed. Eli moved through a careful routine, double-checking each adjustment and ensuring that the hidden corridor remained secure. He created small mirrors and reflective surfaces to bend energy, rerouted minor circuits to confuse any incoming scans, and even used the stabilizer's ambient energy to create a low-level interference field. All the while, the child observed, learning quietly. Its glow shifted subtly with every successful adjustment, as if expressing silent approval. Finally, he leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. The child approached and placed a small hand on the device, sending a faint pulse of light through the system. Eli watched the holographic star map, noting how the points representing the agents faltered and shifted. It was a small success, but an important one. He realized that working with the child's abilities, however small they seemed, allowed him to solve problems in ways he could not have done alone. Together, they were a team, human ingenuity and alien intelligence combined. Then came a faint vibration through the floor. Eli froze, the child's glow brightened, and it made a soft sound, alerting him to the shift. Eli went to the window and looked outside. A sleek craft hovered just above the colony streets. Its design was elegant, precise, and unmistakably alien. The agents had arrived. They did not move aggressively. They observed, scanning, calculating, but the message was clear. They were here to find the child. Eli felt no fear, only the weight of responsibility pressing on him. He guided the child gently into the hidden corridor, whispering calm gestures and motions. The child followed, careful, its trust unwavering. Eli activated the energy interference, and the sensors on the craft flickered slightly, as if confused by the signals bouncing through the house. He hoped it would be enough to buy them time. The child reached out, touching his arm in a gesture that was almost human in its reassurance. Eli nodded, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. They had made it this far, but the real challenge was only beginning. From his vantage point, Eli observed the craft silently. He noted the careful scanning patterns, the way the agent systems moved in waves across the neighborhood, adjusting in real time. He realized that the agents were highly intelligent, almost like chess players who anticipated his moves before he made them. Yet he also understood that their methods were predictable to someone who observed carefully. He began planning. The child's device had unique properties, and if he used it cleverly, they could create an illusion, a decoy that would convince the agents that the child was elsewhere. Eli set to work. He carefully activated small projectors, holographic reflections, and subtle energy pulses, coordinating them with the child's device. The child mirrored some of his gestures, learning, helping in small ways. As the illusions formed, Eli noticed a shift in the agent's craft. They hesitated, adjusted, then began scanning another area. It worked. The child's location remained hidden, at least for now. Eli felt a surge of satisfaction, tempered by the knowledge that this was only temporary. As the day wore on, Eli thought about the child's world, the kingdom it had come from, and the agents sent to retrieve it. He imagined the alien parents, wise and careful rulers who would have trained these beings to be both gentle and precise. He realized that he was learning about diplomacy, strategy, and trust in ways he had never experienced. Protecting the child was not about hiding. It was about understanding, cooperation, and clever thinking. Late in the afternoon, Eli decided to take a small risk. He activated a secondary function on the child's device, projecting a simple visual message into the holographic star map. The message was not complete. He did not know the full language, but the child's glow brightened immediately. It reached out, tapping the message repeatedly, its curiosity and understanding evident. Eli realized that the child was beginning to trust him not just as a protector, but as a partner in solving problems. A soft chime from outside startled him. Eli looked up and saw another, smaller craft approaching, moving more slowly this time, almost cautiously. He realized that the agents were being methodical, sending multiple teams to ensure they could locate the child. He guided the child back to the hidden corridor, activating additional energy masking. The child watched, moving carefully, its glow pulsing with a rhythm that seemed almost human in its empathy and awareness. As the evening deepened, Eli found himself reflecting on the uniqueness of the situation. Here was a being from another world, far more advanced in some ways, and yet entirely innocent and reliant on him. The child's intelligence was extraordinary, but so was its need for trust and care. Eli understood that this was not just a test of strategy, it was a test of character. He had to act wisely, calmly, and creatively. He could not rely on force, only on clever thinking and mutual understanding. He spent the next hours reinforcing their hiding place, adjusting the device's signals, and preparing contingencies in case the agents discovered them. The child sat nearby, occasionally reaching out to assist, mimicking his movements or observing with wide, intelligent eyes. Eli smiled quietly. Together, they were creating solutions that neither could have accomplished alone. It was a partnership of empathy, intelligence, and ingenuity, a demonstration of what humans could achieve when combining thought, creativity, and care. Night fell fully, and the lights of the colony dimmed. Eli finally allowed himself to rest, leaning against a wall in the hidden corridor as the child nestled nearby. He thought about what tomorrow might bring. The agents would continue their search, the child's kingdom awaited its return, and he would have to navigate challenges that tested not his strength, but his intelligence, patience, and understanding. Yet he felt confident. He had learned to think ahead, anticipate problems, and act with precision. He had also learned that trust and empathy could be just as powerful as any technology. The child reached out, touching his hand in a gesture that felt profoundly meaningful. Eli held his hand gently, feeling the warmth and intelligence radiating from it. He understood that the bond they had formed was rare and powerful. They were not simply human and alien, they were partners, allies, and friends. And it was this connection, more than any device or strategy, that would guide them through the challenges ahead. As sleep finally approached, Eli glanced at the device one last time. The holographic star map glowed softly, the paths of the searching agents flickering in subtle ways. He knew that tomorrow would bring new tests, more creativity, and perhaps even a direct encounter with the agents themselves. But for now, he allowed himself a moment of calm, a moment of hope, and a moment of quiet pride. He had protected the child, solved problems, and demonstrated the power of human intelligence and empathy in ways he had never imagined. Outside, the stars continued their silent patterns across the sky. Inside, a human and an alien being rested together, united by trust, mutual understanding, and the promise of adventure yet to come. Eli knew that the challenges ahead would require ingenuity, patience, and courage, but he also knew that together, they could face whatever the galaxy had in store. And as he drifted into sleep, the soft pulse of the child's glow echoed in his mind, a rhythm of hope, intelligence, and trust. The galaxy had presented him with a challenge unlike any other, and he had risen to meet it. The story was far from over, but Eli knew that the human spirit of ingenuity, care, and problem-solving would guide him through the trials ahead, shaping not only the child's journey, but perhaps the fate of worlds he had only just begun to understand. The first light of dawn crept over the quiet colony, painting the streets in soft gold and silver. Eli stirred, stretching his arms as the child sat beside him, its glow gentle and comforting. The night had been long, filled with careful preparation, quiet observation, and the constant hum of the stabilizer. Yet a sense of calm had settled over them both. For the first time, Eli felt that the steps he had taken to protect the child were not just effective, they were part of something larger, something meaningful. Eli looked at the child, studying its luminous eyes. They reflected the subtle light of morning, shimmering with curiosity and intelligence. He realized how much he had learned from it: patience, careful thinking, and the power of empathy. The child, in its quiet way, had taught him that strength was not only in action, but in understanding and careful judgment. The galaxy was vast and filled with possibilities, and he had discovered a part of it that few humans would ever see. The holographic device hummed softly, projecting the star map of the child's home. Eli examined it closely, tracing the lines that led back to the distant kingdom. He understood now that the journey home would not be simple, but it was achievable. The agents searching for the child had not been aggressive. They were guardians, precise and wise, tasked with returning it safely. Eli had hidden the child successfully, buying time and creating trust, but now it was time to take the next step. He guided the child carefully to the workshop, showing it the adjustments he had made the previous night. Using gestures and simple symbols, he explained the plan. They would activate the device in a way that allowed the agents to locate the child without risk, creating a pathway for its return while ensuring no harm would come. The child's glow brightened, its eyes reflecting understanding. It reached out and touched Eli's hand gently, as if acknowledging the trust they had built together. Hours passed as Eli fine-tuned the device, coordinating every step carefully. The child mirrored some of his movements, tapping symbols and projecting faint lights that interacted with the system. Together, they created a precise and safe communication link with the child's kingdom. Eli marveled at the way the child's intelligence complemented his own, each understanding different parts of the process. He realized that this was what humans could do best: combine creativity, empathy, and resourcefulness to solve problems that seemed impossible. Finally, the moment arrived. Eli activated the device, sending a carefully structured message across the galaxy. The holographic map pulsed brightly, and a soft vibration passed through the room. The child's glow responded instantly, steady and strong. They waited, silent and tense, until a new projection appeared, figures in elegant forms, radiating authority but calm, appearing on the star map. The agents had received the message. Eli felt a surge of pride and relief. The system worked. The child's safety was no longer in question, at least for now. He watched as the agents adjusted their paths, moving carefully through space, their lights flickering gently in a pattern that signaled patience rather than haste. The child's kingdom had been reached, and they had accepted the careful communication Eli had orchestrated. It was a moment of triumph, not of battle, but of intelligence and strategy. As the sun rose fully, Eli prepared for the final step. He guided the child to the small landing pad outside his home. The craft of the agents was visible, hovering silently, its sleek shape reflecting the early light. Eli took a deep breath. He knew that the next moments would determine whether the child returned safely and whether the trust he had built would be honored. He looked at the child, its eyes bright, its glow steady. They had worked together, and now it was time to see the results. The agent's craft descended slowly, landing with quiet precision. A panel opened, revealing figures that moved gracefully, radiating authority and calm. Eli felt a sense of awe. These were not warriors. They were guardians, beings of intelligence and discipline, responsible for guiding the child safely back to its home. One of them stepped forward, and Eli immediately recognized the elegance and wisdom in its posture. It was the child's parent, the alien princess, observing carefully, her eyes reflecting intelligence, concern, and finally recognition. Eli stepped forward, the child beside him. The princess looked at the human with quiet curiosity, as if measuring the depth of his involvement. She gestured toward the child, who moved instinctively into her arms. The reunion was gentle, filled with light and subtle shifts in color from the child's glowing skin. Eli watched, feeling a mixture of pride and relief. He had kept the child safe, taught it, learned from it, and now he was witnessing the first moment of its return. The princess turned to Eli, her expression calm but appreciative. Through gestures and a sequence of subtle light pulses, she conveyed her understanding. The child's safety had been ensured, the return carefully managed, and trust had been built. Eli felt a warmth in his chest, knowing that his actions had earned recognition not through force, but through intelligence, empathy, and careful planning. He realized that this was the essence of humanity, an ability to solve problems with creativity and care, to earn trust, and to act wisely under pressure. The child looked up at Eli one last time, its glow pulsing softly, as if saying goodbye. Eli reached out, touching its hand gently. He felt the connection they had formed over days of cooperation, observation, and learning. It was a bond that transcended language, species, and distance. He knew that the child would remember him, and that he would remember the child not just for what it was, but for what it had taught him about intelligence, patience, and the power of empathy. The princess nodded toward Eli, then guided the child into the craft. The panels closed, the lights dimmed, and the ship rose gracefully into the sky. Eli watched until it disappeared among the stars, a small point of light moving steadily toward its distant kingdom. He felt a sense of completion and wonder. The challenge had been met, the problem solved, and humanity's ingenuity had shone brightly in the galaxy. Eli returned to his home, feeling a quiet sense of fulfillment. The stabilizer hummed gently, the morning sunlight filled the room, and the memory of the child's glow lingered in his mind. He thought about what had happened. The accidental knock on his door, the intelligence and innocence of the small alien, the challenge of keeping it safe, and the careful solution that had returned it to its home. Every step had required thought, patience, and empathy, and every step had affirmed the power of human creativity and care. He sat down, reflecting on the experience. The universe was vast and full of unknowns, but he had discovered something important, that humans could rise to challenges in ways that no brute force could achieve. He had protected life, earned trust, and demonstrated intelligence that crossed the boundaries of species. The galaxy was not a place to fear, but a place to engage with thoughtfully, creatively, and responsibly. Hours passed in quiet reflection. Eli considered the child's kingdom, the beings that had searched for it, and the lessons he had learned. He realized that every being, no matter how different, could teach him something valuable. Trust, understanding, patience, and clever thinking were universal, and the human spirit had a unique capacity to apply them even in situations that seemed impossible. As evening approached, Eli stepped outside. The colony was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of distant stars. He breathed deeply, feeling the cool air and the sense of possibility that stretched across space. The adventure had ended, but its impact remained. He had been changed, shaped by the experience and strengthened by the trust and partnership he had shared with the child. He looked up at the stars, imagining the small point of light that represented the child returning home. A smile touched his lips. Humanity had played its part not through violence or power, but through empathy, intelligence, and ingenuity. He had answered a knock on his door, and in doing so, he had proven that the human spirit could reach beyond the boundaries of its own world, touch the lives of others, and make a difference in a galaxy far larger than anyone could imagine. The night settled fully over the colony, quiet and serene. Eli walked back inside, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. He had faced a challenge unlike any he had known, worked with a being from another world, and solved a problem that required more than skill. It required trust, understanding, and the cleverness that defined humans. As he finally rested, he reflected on the journey. The curiosity of the child, the complexity of the galaxy, the precision of the agents, and the careful, thoughtful actions that had ensured safety and trust. He realized that this story was only one of many possible adventures, but it would remain a reminder of the power humans held when they acted with intelligence, empathy, and determination. And in the quiet of the night, as the stars shone above, Eli understood something profound. Life could be ordinary and quiet one moment, and extraordinary and expansive the next. A simple knock on a door had introduced him to the wonders of the universe, the depth of interstellar trust, and the brilliance of human ingenuity. He closed his eyes, content, knowing that he had done well, not through strength, not through power, but through thought, care, and heart. The galaxy continued to turn, planets glimmered, and stars pulsed with light. Somewhere far away, the child had returned home, safe and secure, carrying memories of a human who had made a difference. And Eli, in his small home on the edge of known space, felt the quiet pride of someone who had risen to an extraordinary challenge, demonstrating that humanity's greatest power was its mind, its empathy, and its courage to act wisely. The story had reached its end, but the lessons remained. The universe was full of possibility, and humans had proven that they could meet it with intelligence, kindness, and creativity. Eli smiled one last time, knowing that the ripple of their actions had traveled farther than he could see, touching lives and shaping the galaxy in subtle but meaningful ways. And as the night deepened, the soft hum of the stabilizer and the memory of the child's glow reminded him of a simple truth. Sometimes, the smallest beings could teach the greatest lessons, and sometimes the human spirit could shine brightest when it reached beyond its own world. To care, understand, and create.